The forest that hides underwater secrets. The forest seemed normal, but there was something hidden in the lake among the trees that no map showed. The water was dark, almost black, reflecting the twisted branches above as if they were teeth ready to bite. The locals avoided the place, but curious people always came, drawn by a feeling they couldn't explain. When someone approached the shore, the water remained still, silent, but beneath it, shadows moved with precision, hiding ancient secrets impossible to comprehend. Small, forgotten objects would surface from time to time, only to remind them that something alive was watching, something that could pull in more than just bodies. It could pull in entire stories, fragments of lives and memories. And so, as if the forest itself were breathing, the lake called, irresistible and dangerous, promising secrets that perhaps should never be discovered. Those who approached the lake for the first time felt an inexplicable unease. The wind swept through the trees, seemingly whispering incomprehensible words, while small ripples appeared beneath the surface, even though nothing had fallen into the water. Some visitors reported feeling something moving underneath, something that watched their every step, every breath, but never fully revealed itself. The oldest residents avoided the area, recalling stories of people who had gone to explore and never returned the same. Some came home with subtle signs of confusion. Details of their own lives disappeared, personal belongings vanished without explanation, family names were forgotten for minutes or hours, only to return distorted, incomplete, like corrupted memories. Once, a group of young people decided to camp near the riverbank. They set up hammocks, flashlights, and a campfire. During the night, strange sounds echoed from the water. Nothing identifiable, just slow, deep movements, a hypnotic rhythm that seemed to draw their attention and their memories. Some of them woke up the next day not knowing how they had returned to the shore, unable to remember details of what had happened during the night. The lake, quiet and dark, seemed to test those who approached. Small signs, a reflection that didn't belong to that moment, a shadow passing beneath the water, a sudden feeling of weight on the ankles. These were subtle warnings, easily ignored, but impossible to forget when someone tried to turn away. The surrounding forest intensified the feeling of isolation. Tall trees blocked any view of the trail back, and the low-lying fog moved as if it had a life of its own, confusing perception. The lake didn't need to shout. It simply existed. And whoever dared to stare at it for too long began to feel the silent call that no one could resist. As the day wore on, the lake began to reveal subtleties that no one could explain. It reflected the sky but distorted everything that could be seen, as if bending time and space around it. Branches seemed to stretch beneath the surface, shadows appeared in places where there was nothing, and the reflection of anyone approaching seemed to follow different steps, as if the water were showing another version of reality. Visitors began to notice subtle changes in themselves, a forgotten detail from a previous conversation, a thought that vanished before being completed, a name that wouldn't come to mind. The more cautious tried to distance themselves, but an almost instinctive curiosity pulled them back. The lake seemed to promise answers but delivered only confusion, suggesting secrets that couldn't be fully remembered. If this interpretation is making you rethink this story, leave a comment below with your perspective. These videos are meant to provoke reflection, and I read all the comments. And if this type of content interests you, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones. Objects left by the water's edge disappeared without reason. A backpack, a water bottle, a notebook with notes about the place. Nothing escaped the lake. When something returned, it was different, torn, distorted, or wet in a way that no one could explain. It was as if the water itself rewrote the history of whatever it touched. The forest seemed to watch along. Shadows danced in the trees, created not by the wind, but by some ancient presence. The low mist deepened around the shore, almost suffocating, and the lake remained still, deceiving the senses. Even the natural sounds, birds, insects, animal footsteps, seemed to disappear, as if the water pulled everything into itself, absorbing the world around it. And as the sun went down, the feeling intensified. The lake's dark surface seemed to absorb the little light that remained, reflecting impossible figures, faces that didn't exist, memories of those who had never been there. Those who spent too much time near the water felt something subtle and profound. The lake didn't just observe, it manipulated, confused, and prepared those who approached to disappear, leaving only questions and distorted memories. As night fell, the lake became even more unsettling. The black water seemed to absorb the light from the lanterns and even the moonlight, creating a feeling of utter emptiness. Small ripples appeared for no reason, as if something were moving beneath the surface, but no one could identify what. Each step towards the shore brought a strange weight, an invisible pressure that heightened the feeling of unease and danger. The group that dared to approach began to realize that the forest was also reacting. Branches cracked without wind, shadows lengthened, and the low mist moved almost intentionally, blocking paths and confusing perceptions. One member of the group noticed that objects left on the bank began to slowly disappear, as if pulled into the water by invisible hands. The sounds of the forest faded, and the absolute silence weighed heavily. Each breath seemed to echo louder, each step amplified by the surrounding emptiness. The figures reflected in the water did not correspond to real movements. For a moment, the visitors believed they were looking at themselves, but they soon realized that something was altering their images, showing distorted versions of who they were. Despite the growing fear, no one could completely distance themselves. The lake seemed to call to each person by name, or at least by the familiar feeling it evoked in them. Time seemed to slow down, each second lasting an eternity, and the foggy air made concentration difficult. Even the most skeptical began to feel the strange pull of the place, and at the end of that silent night some simply vanished. No screams, no violent waves, no signs of struggle. Only the dark water swallowed them, taking with it bodies, objects, and fragments of reality. The lake remained still, as if nothing had happened. But those who stayed knew that danger was still present, waiting for the next one who dared to approach. When morning finally arrived, the lake looked exactly as before. Calm, still, reflecting the gray sky of the surrounding forest. There were no ripples, no trace of the missing, no bodies, no cries, no sign that the night had been so violent and silent. But the air, heavy with mist, still carried a sense of alert, as if the forest remembered what had happened, and those who remained nearby felt an invisible weight on their shoulders, a subconscious reminder that the lake does not forgive curiosity. The few survivors walked away in silence, unable to speak about what they had seen. Some tried to explain, but words were insufficient. Memories mingled, facts became confused, and the feeling that something had been lost forever was inevitable. With each step away, the forest seemed to close in behind them, making it impossible to return exactly the same way. It was as if the lake and the surrounding vegetation worked together, protecting its secrets, keeping them intact for the next visitor. Objects left on the shore began to reappear days later, but always different from what they had been. A torn backpack, a crushed bottle, a notebook with partially erased pages. As if the lake didn't want anyone to have exact records of what had happened, returning only distorted fragments, incomplete memories, and persistent doubts. Each trace seemed intentional, a way of warning that those who got too close would be swallowed not only physically, but mentally, by the feeling that nothing could be completely remembered. As the weeks passed, rumors began to spread. People talked about the forest and the lake, half-forgotten warnings of missing visitors. Some brave or reckless souls approached, drawn by curiosity or the need to challenge the unknown. But all who spent enough time on the shore felt the same, a strange sense of belonging that wasn't real, a silent invitation to surrender to the water and the shadows that moved below. The lake remained still, indifferent. It didn't need to pursue or attack in an obvious way. Its strength lay in its patience, in its absolute control over the environment and over the minds of those who approached. Every shadow on the water, every imperceptible ripple, every creeping mist was part of an invisible mechanism of seduction and warning. The lake seemed to say, "You think you understand me, but you know nothing. Whoever enters here enters body and mind." And so the forest continued to guard its submerged secrets. Visitors who departed carried only fragments, distorted memories, disjointed images, and the silent certainty that something invisible watched them, waiting for the right moment. The lake remained still, calm, almost welcoming but lethal in its subtlety. It was a silent guardian, an invisible presence that deceived the mind, manipulated perceptions, and ensured that no one truly left unchanged. In the end, the moral was clear. Not every place that seems familiar is safe. Not every feeling of home or comfort can be trusted. Some waters hold memories, stories, and lives, and some of them never want to be remembered or told. Whoever dares to approach the lake that hides submerged secrets faces not only physical risk, but the danger of being transformed, forgotten, or absorbed by the silence that dwells beneath the dark, undisturbed, and eternally patient surface. If you enjoyed this approach and want to continue exploring stories that are almost never told this way, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And now, click on the video that's appearing on the screen. It directly complements what you just watched and may completely change the way you see this story.